Okay, so thank you for joining us for today's storytelling presentation. This series is run in partnership with Community Living Dufferin, and on the call we have Kathy Hull today from Community Living. And together we run this program on the second Monday of the month with the goal of bringing our shared love of storytelling and learning to the community. Today we are thrilled to host Stephen Lister. Steve is an educator, a professional workshop facilitator, and the founder of Synapse Spark, a consulting service. Stephen was born to teach, and his passion for learning and sharing that knowledge has taken him all over Canada and even to the island of Bermuda, where he spearheaded some school system improvements. His background includes special education specialist, a social studies teacher and department head, autism awareness trainer, and an assist trainer, which is applied suicide intervention skills training. About 6 years ago, Stephen began to research the field of mindfulness. Soon after incorporating it into his own life and realizing the benefits, Stephen decided to share what he learned with others. As part of a 4-person team, he now facilitates workshops for educators across Canada to help them work with some of their more complex students. And today, we are the lucky recipients of just a sample of that training. Stephen will teach us techniques to enhance our mental health, and with C19's ever-presence in our daily lives, I'm sure we could all use a little more mindfulness. So we'll just turn that over to Stephen, and I'll turn my camera off. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, Shannon. And thank you to Kathy for reaching out to me to do this. So I'm going to share my screen now. And we'll go right into it. So I have a number of slides that I would like to show you, mostly just pictures that might generate some ideas for you. And like we said, if you, I'm just going to open my, I'm going to open my chat box here. Oops. I'll tell you what. Right at the moment, I don't want to fiddle with it. I can't seem to see my chat box, but if anybody has something, maybe I can take a look at them later. The idea of mindfulness is not something that's brand new. You've probably heard this word a lot recently, but the ideas actually go back thousands of years. Okay, so the fact that you're aware of it and you may actually have your own mindfulness practice, that's fantastic. What I want to do is sort of go in between, sort of in the middle for people who may not know much about mindfulness, but it should also, allow people who have an awareness and maybe a mindfulness practice of their own to be able to maybe sharpen up their skills a little bit, okay? So the idea here is that if you're looking at the picture there, we have to ask ourselves, is our mind full or are we being mindful? And often our pets are the ones who are mindful. And to be aware that what is happening right now is okay. We don't want to wish necessarily that it were different. If something pleasant in your life is going on, we don't really want to hold on to that when it changes and be sad when the happy times are gone, because they will. But also to understand how to be with the unpleasant without fearing that it will always be this way. We can have very unpleasant things happen to us or to the people that we love. And I am a firm believer that time heals all, but time does not actually get rid of some sadness or some unpleasant feelings and thoughts. And that's kind of how we want to look at mindfulness. Okay. Oh, there we go. So now you may have your own definition of what you think mindfulness is, but for our purposes, we're going to define mindfulness as a self-regulation of attention with an attitude of curiosity, openness, and acceptance. Okay. Now to continue, in addition to the original definition there, and if I'm going quite fast, don't worry, we can talk about this a little bit more later. I just want you to focus on some of the key words. Mindfulness is also the ongoing ability to be continually focused on what we are doing as it is being done, and being fully aware that I am doing this now. This is how I am doing this. And more importantly, this is why I am doing this. So right now you are listening to my voice, you're watching, some slides, and I want you to bring your full awareness to what we are doing, how it's being done, and maybe a little bit about, especially when I go through the next set of slides, is why am I doing this? Okay. There's another part that we want to focus on just briefly, and that is what we call mindful emotional self-regulation. And self-regulation should not be confused with self-control. When sometimes self-control, some people may think self-control means to not feel certain feelings or to shove those feelings down and don't deal with them. That is not what we are talking about. Self-regulation is about the willingness and the ability to become immediately aware of difficult feelings that we are experiencing and learning how to manage them skillfully. Some of us already do much of this already, but we can always be a little bit better. Okay. Now, I'm not going to read all of these to you, but I found this slide created by Alicia Goldstein. She's a PhD psychologist and author of a really good book called The Now Effect. And she talks about what are called the seven things mindful people do differently. Okay. You may do some of these. Okay. Some of the key words in there. Again, I'm not going to read them all to you, but number one is about curiosity, savoring every day. Two, if you make mistakes or somebody else makes a mistake, forgive it. It's easier said than done for sure. Showing gratitude for good and grace in bad. Practicing compassion and nurturing connections. And make peace with, I know I have, making peace with your imperfections and other people's imperfections too, both inside and out. Embracing vulnerability is incredibly important. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more later. And accepting that things will come and things will go. Okay. Now, also, there is a lady that I have just finished reading her book. It's wonderful. Her name is Carol Dweck, and she talks about what we call fixed and growth mindsets. Again, as I'm going through this, you may say, well, Steve, how can I do these things? Well, you'll find some of your own ways, your own methods of helping you grow or move, pardon me, from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And here's a small chart that I've created to show you some of the differences between a person who is whether it's yourself or somebody that you know, but you got to work on yourself first. I want to make that really clear. Have to work on yourself first before we start trying to work on others and maybe criticizing others. And that is something that you're born with or is fixed, a skill set, but a growth mindset is that you can improve your skills and you can always be improving. Also, the differences in when we look at challenges or facing challenges in our life. If you're in a fixed mindset or somebody else is in a fixed mindset, they may be trying to avoid challenges. It's just easier to avoid them. But on the other side, the growth mindset is that we need to embrace challenge and see challenge as an opportunity to grow. Okay, let's skip down to feedback. Sometimes if we get negative feedback, we may get quite defensive and take it personal. As a teacher for many years and a workshop leader, I've had feedback that's been both wonderful and in some cases negative, but I have to see that feedback as useful and something that I can learn from. In your life, sometimes I know I've been guilty of this, we look to blame others and we get quite discouraged. But if we can look at setbacks in our life, maybe we had a part to play in it, maybe somebody else had a part to play in our setback, but we use that as a wake-up call to work harder the next time and figure out how we can improve. Okay. Now, we talk about, I've done a lot of reading around what's called emotional intelligence. I think a number of you may be familiar with that idea, but when I've been studying emotional intelligence, or EI for short, I came across this idea that there are basically 5 core feelings. Now, there are many words that we can use to describe the feelings that surface in our life, but Essentially, all emotions are derivations of 5 core feelings, and they are happiness, sadness, anger, fear, and shame. And when I've shown this little chart before, some people say, oh my gosh, there's only one good one on there. It's happiness, and all the rest are bad. Not necessarily. Sometimes anger can help us, believe it or not, can help us organize our own thoughts and feelings. Sometimes fear is good, especially if there's a large animal chasing you through the forest. Fear is good. You can get away, right? Shame. Shame, we might say we are ashamed of ourselves or we've embarrassed ourselves, but as long as we learn from it, then we're going to be in a much better place. Okay, so a little bit, just a tiny bit about EI, and some people see that as the struggle between their heart and their brain. It doesn't necessarily have to be that. There is a really, there's been a lot of research into the idea that some supposedly very brilliant, well-educated people struggle to be successful. And sometimes people who have, a lower IQ and fewer very obvious skills and attributes tend to flourish. And we ask ourselves why. And that comes down to emotional intelligence. Very difficult to capture on a resume. It's hard to quantify like an IQ test, but it is extremely important. And if you've done any reading on emotional intelligence, especially through Daniel Goleman, you may be aware of some of what I'm about to talk to you about. Now, when we talk about the brain, and sort of that previous slide of talking about how the brain is attached to the heart. I'm not talking about the heart in terms of love or romantic love. I'm talking about the heart in terms of emotion. And this little diagram of the brain shows you something really important. And that is that everything that you see, all of your senses, your sight, your hearing, your smell, taste, and touch, travel through your body in the form of electrical signals. Okay, the signals pass from cell to cell until they reach your brain. Okay, the key is that all of our sensory information comes through the base of our brain near the spinal cord. You may have heard that referred to in the past, and I won't go into a large discussion here. I would in a workshop, but is that it's our reptilian brain. The reptilian brain is responsible for keeping us safe. It's responsible for doing things within our body, such as regulating our internal body temperature, our heartbeat, our breathing, all things that we don't really necessarily pay attention to. They're going on at that level. But I'll show you the next slide here. In the limbic system, before any thought or idea or anything that's coming in through your senses can actually, before you can actually act on it, okay, I'm still looking at the right side of the brain there. That's called your neocortex. Okay, that is the, if you will, the brain that is helping us make good decisions, hopefully good decisions, helps us think rationally, is involved in critical thinking, and this is where our emotions are processed. Okay, so every sensory piece of information comes in emotionally before our rational, logical thinking can take place. And this is where mindfulness is incredibly important. If we can know we are having an emotion, identify that emotion, where that emotion is coming from, and how it's affecting us, not only just affecting our thoughts or our brain, if you will, but how is it affecting our body? Because our body will tell us when we are having an emotional reaction. Okay. So now, getting into how to be mindful. Okay, talk to you a little bit about the brain, a little bit about 5 core feelings. Now we're looking at what we call, again, much easier said than done. You have to actually practice these things, and it's not going to happen overnight. It could take weeks, months, in some cases, years and years. Okay. One of the first things we want to talk about is leaning into our discomfort. Anything we find that might be uncomfortable for us, If we lean into it, we are going to grow. If we always stay in our comfort zone, then we're not really challenging ourselves. We're not going to be able to confront our own emotions. Okay? I talked a little bit a moment ago about feeling our emotions physically. There is a wonderful book I can make reference to later if anybody wants some more information. It is called The Body Keeps the Score by a gentleman named Bessel van der Kolk. And he wrote a book that's all about how our body keeps score of our emotions, specifically some things that were traumatic in our life. Okay. If you can understand your buttons and you know what those buttons are and who pushes them, you'll be that much further ahead. One of the key things I do mention in larger workshops that I do is if you don't keep a journal, well, I'm not saying you must keep a journal, but if you do keep a journal, some research has gone into the idea that if you're journaling, it is sometimes better to do it pen to paper. It sounds kind of old school. You can definitely do it on your computer or your phone, but there's something about putting the pen to the paper and being able to pause and think about what you're putting. And it doesn't have to be your deepest, darkest secrets. It can just be, I had some emotions today. I think they came from this. I think what triggered me to have that particular emotion might be that. And here's how I dealt with it. Okay. Breathing right. I think we've all heard that idea. Now, I do a significant part of my workshops on meditation. And in essence, I'll tell you two quick things about meditation, which includes proper breathing. One thing about meditation is you can't do it wrong. Secondly, when you meditate, you're not actually asking your brain to turn off. You're not actually trying to create some sort of a black hole or a void in your in your in your body or your mind or your space. What you're trying to do is to recognize your feelings. Where are they coming from? What are some of the images that are coming to your mind? What are some of the words that are coming into your mind while you are meditating? But the key to meditating is to just simply let those thoughts go. Don't analyze what they mean necessarily. Just allow them to come and allow them to go. I have a lot more information on meditation if anybody's sticking around for the last part of this, okay? This is an interesting one, making your goals public. And that is if you tell somebody or tell people that you're going to try to achieve something, using SMART, make your goals specific, measurable. Are they attainable? Are they realistic? Are they relevant to your needs and what you really want out of life? And setting some sort of a time boundary will really help you achieve. But tell somebody. You don't necessarily need to keep that a secret. This is a great one. Visualize your own success. Great leaders do this. Celebrities do this. The top athletes in the world do this. Okay. Laugh and smile. Laughing and smiling will make your day that much better. And sometimes we may say, well, I've had a day where I just can't figure out what to laugh or smile. Find a comedian you like, find a show you like, look up some silly puns or goofy things online. and it will just, by laughing and smiling, it releases in our body different chemicals. Okay. When we're anxious and stressed, cortisol is released in our body, and that wreaks havoc with our cells. Serotonin is a big one, and you can do your own reading and research about that. But if you can laugh or smile during the day, it's definitely going to make you feel better. Cleaning up your sleep. I can tell you from firsthand experience that my wife had told me for many years she thought I might have sleep apnea. I went for the testing and I definitely had sleep apnea. I've had a machine for about 7 or 8 months now, and my energy levels, my mindfulness is just that much better than it ever has been. Okay. Sometimes it can be helpful. I don't mean necessarily going for, paid therapy or seeing a psychotherapist, but having a person who is objective, listen to your situation, your difficulties, your challenges, or even your accomplishments is fantastic, because finding a person who doesn't have any real emotion, they care for you maybe, but they don't have any real emotional attachment or don't know your emotional baggage, can be extremely helpful for helping get things off your chest. Okay. Greeting people by name is incredibly important to the other person, and they will probably reciprocate back to you. Knowing your own body language and being able to interpret others. Okay. And again, I feel like I'm going quite fast here. I would obviously talk about a number of these during my workshops if you're ever interested in taking them. Clearing the clutter, much easier said than done. I've cleared the clutter out of my house. I'm going to be moving soon. It's pretty amazing how clear my brain seems to be these days without all the clutter I used to have in my house. No question is dumb. No question is stupid. And the fact that you might have a question probably means somebody else in the room, if you're in a meeting or a workshop or something, they probably have a similar question. Never be afraid to ask. Okay. Being open and curious. You know, you can see the key words on there about empathy. Don't mind having your ideas challenged. Be considerate of other people's thoughts or viewpoints. I like the one at the bottom right corner, being humble about their expertise. It was really nice to hear Shannon say all those nice things about me at the beginning, but being humble is part of being mindful too. Making sure that we don't send mixed signals. Sometimes we may find that we say one thing, but other people interpret differently. We have to be very clear in what we're trying to say and expressing what it is that we want or need, or expressing our emotions. I love this quote. This is Aristotle. Anybody can become angry. That's easy. But to be angry with the right person at the right time, to the right degree, and at the right time for the right purpose and in the right way, that is not within everybody's power and is not easy. I will tell you, I'm proud, if you will, of the fact that I very, very rarely became angry with even the most challenging students and challenging behaviors. But when I did get angry, it was at the right time for the right reasons, and it really caught people's attention as students and other teachers, whereby some other teachers or colleagues that I worked with, I don't want to disparage them now, but casting stones, but some of them yelled pretty much all day, and the kids just tuned them out. Acknowledging other people's feelings, telling a person, it looks like you're kind of stressed. Is there anything I could help with? You're looking a little bit sad. Do you want to talk about it? Maybe they don't want to talk about it, but acknowledging other people's feelings, even if they don't want to talk to you, is an incredibly mindful act. Okay. And if you are in a position of leadership, if you can clearly explain the decisions that you are making to your people, to your staff, or to, even if you're a parent to a child, clearly explain calmly why it is that you're making this decision or that decision. Okay. Now that was very quick. It's just some ideas. Now I want to move into, I'm going to skip over a couple of these here because they are okay. At the time, when we talk about what we call emotional contagion, that is the idea that anger will beget anger, calm will beget calm. It's kind of like a vibe between two people. And even if one person is getting angry, if the other one can stay calm, if you can stay calm in the face of real chaos, it will eventually bring the other person down, if you will. Okay. Now I see I have a few minutes left, and then again, I'm open to any question that you have later. If you've been putting stuff in the chat box, I can come back to those later. I just didn't want to play around when I shared my screen. I couldn't see the chat box, but here are a few things. In about 2 or 3 minutes, I just want to show you some what we call BB ABC tools. And that is bilateral biomeridian awareness-based calming tools. What that is a big mouthful for, we want to engage both sides of our brain and both sides of our body. So I'm going to put some instructions up here, and I'll just let you read those. We don't really need to, we can even try these in the last part of this if you like, but the idea of folding your arms across your chest and applying pressure to your upper biceps while counting to about 20. That is an incredibly powerful way of calming. We teach children how to do this. Adults do it all the time. It is amazing the amount of pressure, or sorry, the amount of stress we keep right in our collarbone. Okay, or sorry, just below our collarbone in our chest. It's amazing how much. If we can massage that section about halfway between the edge of our shoulder towards our neck, okay, press fairly hard, don't hurt yourself, with a couple of fingers, you will notice that your chest will start to open up. The same, similar to the collarbone, is to apply pressure in that space right between your thumb and your index finger. And if you're doing this later or doing it now, you may notice that, and there's a tremendous amount of nerves that end in that are prominent right there. Okay. And again, you're just applying pressure. Don't hurt yourself. Mindful arm raising and lowering, all you're really doing here is you're relaxing your arms. You slowly inhale and raise both your arms to a count of 4. Hold your arms up for a count of 5. You don't need any weights or anything. And slowly exhale. Do that maybe 5 times. You can do it more or less. You think, well, Steve, this looks like exercise. Well, it is a little bit. And I will say exercise really, really helps your brain. Mindful arm tightening. You can imagine what that is. Just hanging your arms relaxed at your side, slowly inhaling, tighten your arm muscles, and then exhale to a count of 6. This is similar to the arm raising, except if you've got good balance, you can try to lift one leg off of the ground. This idea of balancing, again, has to do coordinating the body with the brain, and believe it or not, can lead to real relaxation. Okay, I've just got a couple quick more. If as a kid you loved being on the trampoline, there's a reason for that. Many special education students use a trampoline. Okay. Listening to calm or soothing music. And something along the lines of like an exercise ball. These are called BBABC tools. Okay. Okay. Now, I went through those quite quickly. Well, in my own mind, sorry. I hope that wasn't too quick for you. You may be saying to yourself, how about the idea of actual mindfulness? Well, that is very much the idea behind meditation, and I'm not going to explain right here. We can do it in the quick Q&A, but the meditation techniques that you choose, whichever one you choose, use anything. There's lots of apps out there, but if you're staying on the line for the Q&A, I can tell you a brief bit more about meditation. Okay. That's pretty much it in 30 minutes. What is a 3-hour webinar, which was developed from a full day 7-hour mindfulness techniques to enhance mental health. So I hope you enjoyed that. And if anybody can stay on the line, I would be more than happy to answer any of your questions or comments.